That's right, Tom. The TSA, at least temporarily, is allowing travelers to take up to 12 ounces of hand sanitizer with them through airport security. Tom?
Mona Kosar Abdi leading us off tonight. Mona, thank you. After days of saying he didn't need a test despite potential exposure, today President Trump revealed he has been tested. The results just released by the White House, and they are negative for the coronavirus. After he had declared that national emergency, the House voting overnight to approve a massive aid bill providing enhanced unemployment benefits and free virus testing, with the Senate taking it up Monday. ABC's Trevor Ault with more on the precautions tonight at the White House.
Today, President Trump stepping before the podium to tell the American people he's been tested for the novel coronavirus.
I decided I should, based on the press conference yesterday. People were asking, did I take the test? I don't know, whatever it takes, a day or 2 days, whatever it is. They send it to a lab.
Tonight, the president's physician reporting the test was negative. For days, the president had been saying he didn't need one, even after concerns he'd been personally exposed to the virus.
I don't think it's a big deal. I would do it. I don't feel that any reason. I feel extremely good. Let's put it this way. I'm not concerned.
Are you being selfish by not getting tested and potentially exposing?
Well, I didn't say I wasn't going to be tested.
Are you going to be?
Most likely, yeah.
Overnight, his personal physician releasing a letter saying a test for the virus was not currently indicated, as he said the president was low risk, despite coming into contact with several Brazilian officials who have since tested positive, including communications chief Fabio Weingarten, seen here next to the president. The Brazilian delegation also met with Miami Mayor Francis Suarez, and he too is now infected, and Brazil's president Jair Bolsonaro will be tested for the virus for a second time on Friday.
Thank you very much.
With officials urging social distancing, the president's also drawing criticism for seemingly disregarding advice from his own agencies, shaking hand after hand Friday in the Rose Garden.
But why are you shaking hands, sir?
Because it almost becomes a habit. People come up to me. They shake hands. They put their hand out. It's sort of a natural reflex. Shaking hands is not a great thing to be doing right now. I agree.
Today, the White House unveiling new measures to limit the threat of exposure inside the West Wing.
You should space more.
Members of the media getting their temperatures taken before entering the briefing room. The vice president's office saying one journalist was denied entry because his temperature was too high. When asked if the coronavirus task force assembled at the same podium as the president and vice president were also being checked, they all nodded.
I had my temperature checked, too.
Even the president telling us as he left the room.
Was your temperature normal, Mr. President?
Totally normal.
All right, Trevor Ault joins us now from the White House. And Trevor, you were in the brief room there, and the vice president said he had not been tested for the virus. This is the second time in 2 days he and the president have appeared next to each other. What's being done? Are they ignoring those social distancing recommendations?
Well, Tom, ABC News has obtained an email sent by Vice President Pence this afternoon to the entire White House staff, urging them to avoid physical contact. It says the CDC recommends home quarantine for anyone who's had prolonged exposure, but it does specifically say that doesn't apply to handshakes and photographs. Tom?
All right, Trevor Ault with all those new developments from the White House tonight. Trevor, thank you. Next to the scramble for information and testing for the sick, so many people taking officials' warning seriously and hunkering down now at home, hoping to stop the spiral of cases. New York State reporting its first 2 fatalities. Here's ABC's Diane Macedo.
Tonight, New York is reporting its first 2 coronavirus deaths as COVID-19 spreads across the country. Mayor Bill de Blasio confirms an 82-year-old woman died after being admitted to the hospital last week in critical condition. She was also battling advanced emphysema. It's unknown how she got COVID-19. And another 65-year-old victim with underlying health issues died in Rockland County.
We're going into a full crisis footing. This is a wartime dynamic.
New York State is now reporting 524 cases.
This is a virus that does not threaten all segments of our society equally.
This map shows what nationwide cases looked like just 2 weeks ago. At the time, the virus was confirmed in just 9 states, and the first death had just been announced in Washington. Tonight, 49 states are confirming cases, plus the District of Columbia, with more than 50 deaths nationwide. West Virginia is now the only state with no reported cases of COVID-19. The common complaint? Lack of thorough testing.
We don't feel like we have enough tests. I don't think anybody feels like they have enough tests right now.
Local governments are trying to catch up with drive-through testing sites in San Francisco, Seattle, Denver, Birmingham, all the way to New Rochelle, New York, where residents with symptoms have to call a hotline to schedule a test. Each city has a different protocol. Meanwhile, the president is promising a website to help streamline the testing process. But tonight, questions are mounting about that. This is nationwide. At least 46,000 schools have closed, keeping some 26 million students at home. For the first time ever, Apple is closing all of its stores worldwide, with the exception of China, for 2 weeks. And tonight, retailers say they're working with suppliers to keep up with heavy demand for cleaning supplies, toilet paper, and hand sanitizer.
We're still replenishing it and shipping it, but as soon as it hits the stores, it's going.
All right, Diane Macedo joins us now live from Times Square. And Diane, we are just getting some breaking news in, as you were reporting there, about an outbreak not too far from Times Square in nearby New Jersey.
That's right, Tom. Teaneck, New Jersey is reporting 18 cases. The mayor there is now asking people to
Bon, Sheila, je te salue. Hein? Bonsoir, bon, Sheila. Il y a quelqu'un que nous attendons. Donc, ouais, et c'est eux qui forcent faire me parler sur live là. Et que nous avons passé pour mon national et international. Bonsoir, bon, Sheila. Je pense que tu vas très bien. Hein? C'est bon, cher. Et puis, partagez, hein? Partagez.
But tonight, the reality check. Here's ABC's Rachel Scott.
Tonight, mounting questions about the program the president promised the American people.
It's going to be very quickly done, unlike websites of the past, to determine whether a test is warranted and to facilitate testing at a nearby convenient location.
Touting Google's work on a website with easy access to coronavirus testing information.
Google has 1,700 engineers working on this right now. They've made tremendous progress.
And it wasn't just the president. Dr. Deborah Birx of his coronavirus task force holding up this chart to explain how it would work.
Where clients and patients and people of interest can go, fill out a screening questionnaire.
The vice president jumping in too.
And then at the same website, you'll be directed to one of these incredible companies that are going to give a little bit of their parking lot so that people can come by and do a drive-by test.
But about a half hour after the president's event concluded, Google tweeting this statement on behalf of their sister company, Verily. Their website, as of right now, is in the early stages of development, and that it plans to roll testing out in the Bay Area with the hope of expanding more broadly over time. Today, the vice president was pressed for an explanation.
So where's the discrepancy about the website, Google's involvement?
We're working literally around the clock. And I know that our whole team working on this public and private partnership couldn't be more grateful to all of the hardworking people at Google that are helping to put this website together. But tomorrow, 5 o'clock, we'll have very specific. Description tomorrow about.
All right, Rachel Scott joins us now from Washington. And Rachel, the vice president, when asked, repeated that more information about this website will be announced tomorrow at 5 p.m.
Exactly, Tom. But again, the company behind it says that website is still in the early stages of development. Now, Vice President Mike Pence said that there were plans to launch a version of the site in the Northern California area on Monday. But as for a more detailed timeline of a possible national rollout, he said that will come tomorrow. Tom?
All right, Rachel, thank you. In this programming note, tomorrow morning on This Week, John Carl goes one-on-one with infectious disease expert Dr. Anthony Fauci and Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin. And overseas to Europe now, where cases of COVID-19 have been so rapidly expanding. The major announcement today from Spain, heavy restrictions on movement for 46 million people, effective immediately, plus new measures in France, Germany, and of course, hard-hit Italy. Millions staying home in hopes of riding this out. Here's ABC's Julia McFarland.
Tonight, a new hot zone in Europe. Spain announcing a nationwide lockdown after already declaring a state of emergency. Authorities saying any movement by residents needs to be justified. They're only allowed to leave their homes under limited circumstances to do things like buy food or go to the pharmacy or the hospital. More than 5,700 infected with COVID-19 there already. Fears that number could soon reach 10,000. In just a few weeks, the outbreak's epicenter swinging from China to Europe with devastating effect. In Italy alone, COVID-19 claiming 175 lives in the last 24 hours. North of Milan, this Bergamo newspaper's Friday obituary section larger than normal, 10 pages long. In Rome, lockdown residents gathering on their balconies, applauding the efforts of medical workers. More than 500 people recovering from the virus across the country in the last day. And in France, the Prime Minister announcing that non-essential public places will be closed, including restaurants, cafes and cinemas, until further notice.
And those strict restrictions in France now being replicated in Germany. Julia?
Exactly, Tom. Tonight, the Berlin Senate deciding to ban all events and public gatherings of 50 people or more. Bars, casinos, cinemas, museums, concerts, and similar businesses, they're all going to be closed to the public. Restaurants may stay open, but only if their tables are at least 1.5 meters apart. They're serious about stopping this virus in its tracks. Tom?
Julia McFarland from London tonight. Julia, thank you. Next, back here at home to a focal point of so many concerns. Tonight, elderly Americans, especially those living in nursing homes, the stark measures to keep them safe, and the big worries tonight. Here's ABC's Marcy Gonzalez.
Tonight in that Washington state nursing home where more than 24 residents have already died amid the coronavirus crisis, several people are still waiting for test results. Families on edge as the National Coronavirus Task Force announces new measures to protect the elderly in facilities across the country.
Nursing homes should restrict all visitors effective immediately, and that includes all non-essential personnel. There are some exceptions for end of
Tonight in that Washington state nursing home where more than 24 residents have already died amid the coronavirus crisis, several people and healthcare workers are now being actively screened. Actions Charlie Campbell hopes will help other patients like his father Eugene. The 89-year-old was among the residents who contracted COVID-19 at the Life Care Center in Kirkland, Washington.
We figured because of his age that it was pretty much a death sentence.
But a week and a half later, he's showing positive signs of recovery.
I think there's a pretty good chance that he'll survive it. Doctors are cautiously optimistic.
And today, the nation's top infection specialist, Dr. Anthony Fauci, offering some optimism for healthy seniors, stressing that without any underlying conditions, the risk of infection is significantly less. Tom?
What you're seeing right now, this is part of the eye wall. This procession of migrants goes back 2 miles.
There is going to be catastrophic damage.
This fire has made a run. You can see those flames shooting up into the sky.
We are on the jam-packed red carpet.
To the right, guys.
So this is the 4th weekend of protest.
Watch ABC News on location for Facebook Watch.
What's the most innovative daily news podcast out there to listen to every day? Well, the Edward R. Murrow Awards say it's Start Here, the daily news podcast from ABC News. Even the New York Times calls us a top news podcast worth listening to. So if you like getting behind the biggest news stories of the day, inside all the details, the backstory, and what will happen next, then listen to Start Here, the daily news podcast from ABC News. It's like no other news podcast out there. Even the critics agree. Listen free on Apple Podcasts.
This is what being live is all about. This is ABC News Live, the 24/7 streaming news source from ABC News. Breaking news, live events, streaming nonstop. Original breakthrough storytelling from ABC News, National Geographic, ESPN, and it's all designed differently for you to stream straight to any screen whenever you want.
ABC News Live.
Streaming everywhere, right to you. ABC News Live. It's that easy to go there.
The Americans here on the ground and the Iraqis. 18,000 tons. Patatas. Ismail? David.
Over ground zero from Hurricane Michael.
You can see just home after home.
David, nice to meet you.
This was your view.
My favorite view.
Thank you very much.
What can you do to stay safe, protect yourself, protect your family? Monday, the vital information you need to know. Your questions answered. Monday at 10/9 Central on ABC.
Former U.S. Marine Captain Anuradha Bhagwati has fought to help service women access the front lines of the battlefield. Less than a decade ago, women in the military were forbidden to serve in direct ground combat, and some jobs were off limits.
There were a variety of limitations on women in combat, even though women had been in the military for decades.
But that has changed. Women can now join the Navy SEALs. Thanks to Captain Bhagwati's efforts, gender barriers are crumbling down. She used her voice to help make historic change, easing the gender divide, allowing women to defend their country on their terms. This is Anuradha, and this is her story. Bhagwati grew up the daughter of immigrants in New York City. She says her strict parents were traditionalists.
I fell in love with my best friend who was a girl when I was 16. This was something that just sent shockwaves through my parents.
But it ended when her mother found out.
It shut the door for years on me and love.
Bhagwati turned her thoughts to academic success, going on to Yale. After, there was grad school at Columbia University, where her parents were professors. But Bhagwati says she was miserable.
There was a relentless pursuit of this goal without any kind of balance or perspective.
In 1997, she says she had an epiphany after seeing the female-focused action film G.I. Jane.
So I remember seeing that and thinking, I wonder if I could do that.
The Yale grad joined the Marines, throwing herself into a rigorous physical environment. She writes in her book, Unbecoming, a memoir of disobedience, I remember my body being physically thrashed and my mind slowing, losing its grip from any reality I'd once known. As a woman of color who identifies as bisexual, she discovered a harsh reality. She recalls an unsettling moment after joining the Marines when officers joked that a woman soldier depicted in a poster was not a real Marine. She says she endured rape jokes, daily harassment, and all levels of misogyny. Feeling that other women in the Marines might be having a similar experience, she often asked herself, why?
Why are there double standards in the Marine Corps? Why are men required to do pull-ups and women aren't? Women should do everything men should do. And not only should they, but I know they can.
Through her grit and tenacity, Bhagwati went on to become an officer and finally had access to power. She planned to use it to elevate marginalized voices in the Marines.
That's the spirit I brought to my own units. It was, no, all the women are going to train as hard and probably harder than the men. There's no such thing as a female Marine. They're just Marines.
But the life of a Marine wasn't easy to bear. Bhagwati says she was once punched in the face by a fellow soldier and given long, uncomfortable embraces by a male captain. When she tried to speak up, she says she or other female victims were blamed by senior officers who preferred to sweep the allegations under the rug. In fact, Bhagwati says one lieutenant accused of harassment even had his career blossom.
A lieutenant was promoted, given command of my company, right? So now he's in charge of the women he's been harassing. And it's just, you can't make this stuff up.
It was a bitter reality. Bhagwati recalls in her book, sexual predators thrived in places like the Corps, especially when they had rank. Despite her hard-won success, this officer became disillusioned as she watched cover-up after cover-up. After 5 years, Bhagwati left the Marine Corps, but never escaped the PTSD and depression that she says haunted her.
It really takes its toll. Harassment absolutely leads to PTSD. There are high rates of PTSD from sexual harassment in the military.
But coming to terms with it fueled this former Marine's drive to bring equality to the military. She created SWAN, the Service Women's Action Network.
For me, it was very healing to be able to speak out fiercely on behalf of victims in the military.
My next guest dropped out of grad school at Columbia to join the Marines. That in itself is a story. She then became a prominent force for gender equality in the U.S. military. That was partly about sexual harassment and assault, and also about her successful push to allow women to fight alongside men in combat.
Right. The military has a hard time dealing
very
with
healing to be able to
institutional
speak
failures.
out
In this case, with
fiercely
military rape and
on
sexual assault, we're
behalf
talking
of
about
victims
a
in the
systemic failure
military.
to protect service members from
Dropped out of
hostile
grad
workplace
school at
environment.
Columbia to join the
Fundamental military
Marines.
justice
That in
reform
itself is
to
a
deal
story.
with why
She then became a
perpetrators
prominent
aren't
force for
being put
gender
behind bars where
equality
they
in the
belong.
U.S. military. That was partly about sexual harassment and assault, and also about her successful push to allow women to fight alongside men.
She knew her experiences should result in some positivity, so she decided to filter her pain into a push for change, granting women equal treatment, especially in combat.
It was mostly women of color and queer women going to Congress to advocate on issues like sexual harassment, sexual assault, don't ask, don't tell. We were part of a series of lawsuits that ended up really turning American eyes and hearts toward service members in a new way. So that was an incredibly rewarding experience for me to be a part of.
So the Service Women's Action Network joined forces with other service women to sue the Pentagon to overturn the ban on women in combat.
It was an amazing time. So women can be Navy SEALs today if they make it through.
For the first time in its 242-year history, the Marine Corps welcoming its first female infantry officer.
For this high achiever, clearing a path for military women to succeed has been a crowning accomplishment. But like trailblazers who came before her, Bhagwati realizes there was a steep personal cost. Today, her life is far from that of the hard-charging soldier she once was. She's a writer, activist, and yoga teacher. She lives in New York City with her service dog Duke, who helps her manage her PTSD. Anuradha Bhagwati, a veteran who suffered while breaking new ground in one of the toughest branches of service. These days, she says she has no regrets.
I'm really happy I did it. Sticking up for what I believe in or what I know is right, even if it hurts me.
Branches of service. These days, she says she has no regrets.
I'm really happy I did it. Sticking up for what I believe in or what I know is right, even if it hurts me.
Voilà, oui, bonsoir à tout le monde. Nous allons essayer. Nous allons essayer de parler ensemble avec vous.
These days, she says she has no regrets.
Concernant
I'm really happy I did it. Sticking up for what I believe in or what I know is right, even if it hurts.
Une maladie qui a ravagé le monde et que nous appelons coronavirus. Est-ce que nous avons intérêt pour nos peurs maladie ou bien virus ça qui est dans le monde là? Oui, nous supposons peur parce que c'est un virus qui tue ou bien qui tue le monde. Pour qui est obligé peur puisque nous dit déjà son virus capture le monde? C'est parce qu'on est humain. Comment nous capables de faire pour nous courir derrière la peur ça ou bien la puresse ça? Il y a des principes que nous demandé pour nous capables d'appliquer. Qui c'est à chaque fois que ou touche un bagage sur ton côté, ou supposé laver main. Comment que me dit là et c'est surtout avec chrétiens yo m'a parlé et qui comprennent comme si du fait que il appelé la Bible c'est disciple bon Dieu, c'est petit bon Dieu, on fait bon Dieu confiance, bon ça va. Pas besoin d'entrer dans la logique laver main du tout ça pour ce avec la foi que me dans mon Dieu mais puis bon il a sauvé moi. M'a dit que c'est pas un joke. Maladie corona pas un joke. n'est pas un joke. À chaque fois que vous sortez une activité quelconque touche au marché quelconque saute dans marché saute dans c'est laver mais on que lié pour pas non seulement prendre et pour te la caillou by Timon ou by madame. OK? Nous-mêmes, la radio télé KS, nous toujours prendre les soins et quelque chose ça qui passé dans le mode là, nous-mêmes, l'album nous de nous pas faute de seulement voice ou bien et quelque chose qui mais nous porter image pour tout. Raison parce que nous, ça qui passé dans le mode là, les concernés radio télé KS. Si nous avons radio que nous là pour nous capable et sous d'où ça qui passé pour des informations pour vous. Comment vous capable gérer maladie ça. Et ça fait que nous toujours malheureusement nous avons une ligne WhatsApp nous que les amis ont toujours aimé relais que nous pas à la disposition de nous. Mais nous avons un numéro qui c'est 508 17 80 50 que nous capable relais pour participer avec nous. Dis-nous comment comprendre événement ça, virus ça que nous le corona ça qui a ravagé le monde. C'est vrai que pendant au cours de la journée, bon, on a essayé de laisser, disons, la radio et télé KS surtout sur une station, autrement dit, sur une télévision française, et côté que nous avons des chances pour être capables de faire nous vivre et comment la France lui-même, ouais, ce qui a passé là actuellement. Mais nous pas été indifférents pour nous dire que ça n'est pas un cas que nous allons jeûner au coin, mais son cas qui concerne le monde entier. Nous avons été branchés radio à toute télévision qui a porté belle image pour nous. À n'importe quel moment, où vous voulez partager avec les amis, au capable de nous dans la section de 17 50. But if you don't speak Creole, so kind of you will understand English or French, we don't mind. This is your station, radio, RKS. If you want to share something with us in this studio, don't worry about it. Just call us. Favorite 217 8050. Anything you want to talk to us about, don't be shy. Just call us 508 217 8050. This is your station radio, RKS One Love. Donc si vous avez que vous avez partager ça avec nous, pas hésiter à les nous dans 508 17 80 50. Si tu as quelque chose que tu veux partager, alors vous voulez partager avec nous, donc n'hésitez pas de nous appeler au 508 17 80 50 à ce qui concerne disons la maladie ou disons coronavirus. Si vous avez quelque chose derrière la tête, disons un conseil à partager, n'hésitez pas de nous appeler. 508 17 80 50. C'est votre radio RKS. Je vous aime tous. Restez branchés.
Shouldn't be a toothless father who becomes this. It is your mailman, it is your surgeon, it is your doctor, lawyer, it is everyone.
Her story is included in the new book, Antisocial: Online Extremists, Techno-Utopians, and the Hijacking of the American Conversation.
I had talked to a lot of people in the alt-right at that point. She was one of the few people who was not in propaganda mode when she talked to me. So I felt like rather than getting spin or what the movement wanted me to hear, I was just getting an actual human's story.
Samantha says while in the group, she attended a few white supremacy events, like this one in the spring of 2017 held in D.C.
Young people are not caught.
There she is among the crowd listening to the words of alt-right founder Richard Spencer. Samantha says it was rare for women to get involved.
There was always at least like a woman at every party that I had gone to, like other than me, but it was like a handful.
They went to great lengths to make her feel important because she was important, because they needed someone to be the female face of their movement.
Using a pseudonym, Samantha says she became very active in the group's online chat rooms.
Did you ever post hateful messages?
Probably. I don't specifically recall, but I probably did.
Sounds to me like when the politicians ask, did you ever pose in blackface, right? It's kind of thing, either you did or you didn't.
I don't know. And I say that in the sense of like, I haven't looked back, but I mean, probably. I probably did.
But her participation grew darker.
I remember I was at a party, in walks one of the leaders of the movement. He said, Sieg. Pretty much everyone raised their hand and said, Heil. And
including you.
Eventually, yeah. It happened one or two times, and then by the third time I did it. I knew that it was not a good look, but I did it. Everyone else was doing it.
That kind of thinking, putting aside one's morals to follow in the footsteps of others, is perhaps what got Samantha involved with white supremacy in the first place. She says she so badly wanted to feel like she belonged.
I came to the realization that, instead of accepting that I'm just a generally mediocre person, those groups make you feel like you are excellent. You are it just for existing, for doing absolutely nothing.
You're making it sound like if you're a member of one of these groups, the qualifications are be white and be a loser.
I can't really argue that.
It's much easier to get sucked in if you're lonely, if you don't have a strong sense of self. And I think they got to her at a time in her life when she was just really battered around and didn't really know who she was.
She was a girl who grew up in the suburbs of New Jersey, middle class as she describes it, a nice disguise for family demons.
My brother and I were basically kind of trying to raise ourselves. In the middle of high school, I moved to Florida, and I just felt like a total and complete alien.
How do we get from there to where you went next in your life?
I met someone in 2014, and I immediately fell in love with them. And that was that. It was game over.
But Samantha says one day that all changed, when he changed.
He would call me a degenerate. He started saying phrases like he couldn't defend me on the day of the rope.
Day of the rope, what is that?
The day of the rope is... The day of the rope is the day, as written in the Turner Diaries, where white people as a race take people that they have deemed degenerates, unworthy, people of color, people with disabilities, people that are gay or whatever is deemed unpure, unfit for the white race, and they drag them out of their houses and they hang them by lampposts.
The Turner Diary sounds like a hymnal for Adolf Hitler.
Yeah. I mean, it was found in Timothy McVeigh's car after the Oklahoma bombings.
Where do you guys go from there?
I confronted him and just asked him, what is all of this stuff? And he looked me dead in the eye and just said, I think I'm a fascist, and I don't want to be with anyone who can't support that. And then I packed up, whatever I had with me and left. I was crying. And by the time I got to my house, I was like, I need to understand it, though. Where did this come from?
She says she spent the next 5 days scouring the internet for information in an effort to convince herself that her boyfriend wasn't racist. A few days later, she calls him.
And I tell him, I'll try and understand this with you. And so I start consuming more media.
Were all these videos violent?
No, I mean, a lot of it was just like, you know, here's a baking show with this woman who is dressed like a traditional woman on a prairie.
She's really smart, but she didn't know enough to know the things that were talking points and the things that were propaganda and how to push back against them with reality.
Soon after she joined that group, Identity Europa.
So at the time when I joined, I really thought it was just pro-white. I didn't think about what it really was.
And it really is what?
It's a hate group. It's absolutely a hate group.
In your words, you were pro-white. Did that mean you thought less of people who look like me?
No, I didn't think I did.
Either you're pregnant or you're not, right?
That's kind of something that I've struggled to come to terms with, but I didn't think that I was doing anything wrong.
Identity Europa has now rebranded themselves as the American Identity Movement. That according to the Anti-Defamation League.
A lot of these groups, they constantly have to rebrand because they have such a terrible actual belief system that once people find out what the belief system is, they have to keep shifting, but the core of it is still the same.
On its website, the American Identity Movement describes itself as an organization that displays defiance against mass immigration and globalism. They say they prohibit the advocacy or participation in supremacy, violence, or illegal activity. They say that allegations to the contrary originate from left-wing individuals and organizations. As for Samantha, today she lives with both fear and regret. Fear of those she followed, regret for those such hate can harm.
I learned from this, and I really hope that I can help people understand how this happens and how they too can get out, and how maybe you can even stop someone from starting.
For Nightline, I'm Byron Pitts.
What if I told you that I wanted you to me right here, right now?
Almost nothing is off limits in HBO's latest boundary-pushing show, Euphoria. The gritty teen drama stars Zendaya and a web of young actors portraying drug use and hardcore sex among high schoolers.
Stop! Stop!
In one graphic scene, turning what appears to be a brutal rape.
I thought you liked that. How the would I like that?
Into an intimate moment between two sexually confused teenagers.
Just don't do it again. Unless you ask me first.
Euphoria seems to revel in its dark, sexually explicit portrait of the American teenager.
You're so clean.
As dramas become edgier, there's a need for a new kind of safety net, one that allows actors to feel safe on set and legally define how much skin they show and how much sex they engage in on screen.
It's amazing how much better the product is when the actors know they're going to work and are not going to be sexually assaulted that day.
They're called intimacy coordinators, someone whose job it is to oversee and even choreograph sex scenes, pre-planning every embrace, every touch.
And how is being an intimacy coordinator like being a stunt coordinator?
We are not actually having sex on set, but we are telling the story of that. There are ways to cheat that. There are ways to also do it safely with hygiene, sexual health, all of that in mind.
Alicia Rodas helped create Intimacy Directors International. A former actor herself, her group literally wrote the handbook for intimacy, on stage and on screen.
There's physical health and there's emotional health of the actors. How do you look out for both?
With emotional health, it's to make sure that someone isn't being traumatized, to make sure that someone isn't being harassed.